All right, how's it going? I made a thing, so I'm going to talk about it. So as I was working on my stuff for the D&D game that I DM for, I started working on, my players asked me, I need, who's the shopkeeper? Who's this? Who's that? And I needed to be able to make a character quick, fast, and in a hurry. And there's online generators that do this. I found that they were a little lacking in the scope or the variety that they would give me, or I found that they were too narrow. They would give me like a name, a race, a gender, and like maybe one little quirk about them, but that didn't give me enough as a DM to actually run that character, especially if they were going to be a recurring character or they were important or they needed, I didn't know. I still needed more information to run and pilot that character. And so as I was also learning and reading stuff for DMs on how to make characters and how to run characters and put them into your games, at the same time, I've been learning how to write novels, and I've been learning and reading from other authors about how they make characters for their books. And so I learned things that are transferable across both of those things. You learn how to make a character in terms of a tabletop role-playing game, but then you can learn how to make a character in terms of a book or a movie or whatever else. And there's things that tell you a lot about a person, about a character, that I just found were, they were not common. I would find them, I'd be reading in some different tabletop RPG game about how to make a character, and they would have this section about like disposition or worldview, and that was new to me, and it stuck out to me as like, wow, this is actually really important. This is really salient. This tells me a lot about this character. Why have I not seen this like anywhere else? And the more and more of those things that I ran into, the harder it was for me to keep that running list, that running tally in my head of all those really important things that really tell me a lot about the character, who they are as a person, and how to run them and how to write them, or how to play them if I'm actually playing in a game as a player character rather than as a DM. So I made this character generator as a way to take all of those things that I have learned from all these different RPG systems, from all these different authors, from all these different books, these self-help threads, these videos, and I've tried to put it all together into one tool that's not only quick and easy to use for a variety of use cases, but also it's very simple to extend or to modify. So this is like the third draft of this code. So this is version 3. But the way that this works is you literally can just come in here and run this executable file and make a character. Now, all these other files in here these look complicated. This looks complex, but I'm going to open one of these and I'm going to show you. These CSV files, comma separated values, these are literally just open with. It should just open with. Yeah, I can just open this in a text editor. Okay? So here, everything that's in here, there's a lot of options in here, but this is just plain text. I can come in here, I can remove a line, I can come in here and I can add a line later. These are super easy. So like, this is a generator, so it's going to pull options from these files and roll them randomly. So like, let's look at this one. This is for race. So here we have the option is the first entry there on the far left. So this is what it is. And then there's a weight value, which is just a number that comes right after it in a comma. So in this version of the generator, because I was mainly doing this for D&D, but you can use it for a bunch of other things, and it's very easy to adjust it to your needs. In this version, I said that humans were 4 times more common than orcs. But this is a number. You can go in and you can change this. Maybe orcs are 5 times more likely than humans. Maybe there's no elves in your setting at all. Maybe halflings aren't called halflings. They're called hobbits because you're cultured. Whatever it is, like you can come in here and change. These are just text files. You can come in here and change these. You can add stuff, remove stuff, super easy. And they're all weighted and they're very nice. So let's actually show you how this generator works. So I'm going to run this little executable, and I just get this little window here. So the first thing it's going to ask me is, do you want to make a quick character? And the idea for this was I just need I just need either a jumping off point, I need a starting point, or my players are like, who's running the shop? And I just need a whole bunch of information in like a hurry. So I'm just going to type Y and I'm going to push enter. Boom, and it's done. Okay, so here's this character. So let's go over all the stuff that this generator covers and puts out into this formatted little text file here. So here's the generated name. So this is Veveth. They are a old man hobgoblin. Okay, so they have a unique look. They're missing some teeth. Okay, piety-wise, he worships fluently, so he's very religious. Here's the 4 selves. So his social self, who he is around other people. He's a smooth-talking charmer who can get along with anyone. His personal self, like who he is from his own point of view, is that he's a gentle, nurturing with family. Then you have the core self, which is like who you actually are. And then you have this hidden self that you kind of keep from other people. And that was a concept from novel writing that I pulled, I believe, from Jed Hearn and his advice. Okay, so it gives you the 4 selves for that person. It gives you some siblings. It gives you their occupation. So apparently this hobgoblin old man is an architect. His particular talent is he's good at inspiring and motivating people. It gives you a flaw. And the flaw in this context is somewhat minor. It's not like a huge character flaw or a personal failing. It is something small, but is memorable and defining about the character. So in this case, our hobgoblin architect is obsessed with money or fame. So maybe he's gone into architecture and he's really tried his entire life to build something that's memorable or that makes a lot of money. So we have a quirk, which is another small thing that helps differentiate the character from like all the backdrop, all of the extras that are in your setting. So apparently he speaks in riddles. Everybody has a secret, so this guy's apparently being blackmailed. So maybe he's being blackmailed by a competitor, another architect. Maybe he's been blackmailed by somebody he owes money to, and that's why he's so concerned with getting money. There's just a lot of things in here that you can use, even though they're small, that help try to paint the picture of this character as it sort of comes together. The generator has superpowers, which I've listed as optional because not all settings have them. So apparently our architect, if we're allowing him to, can travel through time. So what does that allow him to do? Does that allow him to look for architecture techniques in the future or maybe from the past? He's borrowing inspiration from building styles that have long been forgotten to history or from a civilization that doesn't exist anymore because they got razed or erased. Who knows? But he's apparently pretty serious. So temperament is, so attitude in this context is generally the kind of person they are. If you say someone is that guy is a blank person, that's what goes in this sort of attitude slot. So he's a serious person. So his general mode of emotional operating when he's not having a good day or a bad day, his default is serious. Okay, we have temperament here. So there's 2 temperaments. There's primary and secondary. They both draw from the same pool, but they'll never be the same. So the difference is for your primary temperament, you have 5 strengths and 3 weaknesses. And for your secondary temperament, you get 2 strengths and 1 weakness. So apparently our architect friend, he is mostly introverted, but he has some extroverted tendencies. So he tends to find the easy way to do something. He tends to stay relatively calm and collected. He's easygoing. He's quiet. And he has mediated problems. Okay. But he is a little indecisive. He tends to stay uninvolved. And apparently he would rather watch. That's interesting. So architects can be designers or they can be builders. So maybe our architect is more a designer and he would rather watch the construction people build something or deliberate over his design than to actually put his hands on the material and help to build it himself. So his secondary temperament is choleric. So it says he can run anything and he tends to see the whole picture. That makes sense for a designer, a big picture kind of person. I like that. His weaknesses is that he enjoys controversy. So again, maybe in his quest for fame and money, he's really taking risks. He's really putting forth some daring designs that are difficult to build or very expensive to maintain, and watching other people like bicker and complain or argue over like his very bold choice in architecture, like really is something that he enjoys, and maybe that gets him in trouble at work or in his personal life. So then we have the section for disposition, and I realized I need to have a header for this. So disposition comes in 5 categories, and disposition is your characters, how they view or their outlook on certain aspects of life in the universe. So the first one is intrapersonal. So how does your person view relationships with within people? So apparently our architect prefers to seek patterns in things as a mean to understanding and to carefully weigh decisions instead of utilizing randomness. So these bold decisions that he's making with his architecture are done with purpose. He's not just like, let's just do something crazy and let's just slap something on there. No. He has done it for a reason, okay? And for each one of these dispositions, you have their view, you have their outlook. And this could affect their actions. It doesn't necessarily have to. But you have a morality aspect that goes with this disposition. And so that tells you how the character feels about their own view or their actions with regards to this axis. So this tells us he is generally pleased or benefits from these feelings and actions. So if he is doing everything with purpose and with intention, perhaps that controversy is building the fame and the wealth that he is desiring to build. So he is benefiting from this desire to do things with intention as opposed to doing them randomly. So here's the disposition with regards to family. How does he view their family? He prefers to recognize a distinction between family and non-family, but he has a neutral morality. So he doesn't get any benefit or detriment from having that distinction. He just has it. With regards to community, so groups of people, organizations, he does not respect the local laws. So maybe these bold choices an architect he's making that are causing controversy, but also fame and wealth, are because he's designing things that are either illegal or like right on the edge of what's acceptable. But again, he is aligned. He is benefiting or he is pleased with these feelings or actions. So the fact that he is a little flippant or completely disregards the local laws and rules about what kinds of things can be built or designed, he's still getting that fame and that wealth that he desires because he is not beholden to the rules. You know, maybe he is friends with the mayor or with the law enforcement and they give him a pass because they like the stuff that he designs, that he builds. You could be misaligned. If he were misaligned in this area, maybe he's constantly building and designing things that are against the rules or against tradition or heritage or whatever else, and that's getting him a lot of flack, and that would be a misalignment where he would be displeased or suffer from these actions or feelings of not respecting the law. But in this case, he's aligned, so that tells us he's either fine, he's either good with the fact that he's ignoring the laws. He's like, yeah, I'm going to stick it to the man. These old schmucks are out here doing the same thing the same way they've always done it, and I'm here to breathe some fresh air, right? He is benefiting from or is pleased by this notion. So there's the disposition with regards to the state, which is like your government organizations. So it says he prefers his own state, and state doesn't just mean like a state within a country. It can also mean like a governing body. It can be a country, a continent, whatever it is. State is generally just referring to the unit of like government uniformity. So he prefers his own state. So he likes where he was grown up. But it says he's misaligned. He is displeased or suffers from these feelings. So despite the fact that he prefers the place where he lives now, and he prefers his own governing body, he's displeased or suffers from that action or feeling. So maybe he would be happier if he went to somewhere else that had, different views on, or rules and regulations on what architectural things you could build. Maybe he could get more wealth or more fame if he packed up and moved somewhere else, but he likes it here. Maybe he likes the weather, maybe he likes the people, maybe he's just afraid of change. There's a lot of reasons he could prefer the place where he currently lives or the current state of government to foreign external places. But despite the fact that he still prefers his home place, he's farming some kind of guilt, displeasure, or suffering from the fact that he is staying or prefers to be here. Then you have your disposition with regards to the universe, so the general big picture of everything. So he tends towards meaningless, results from the perceived subjectivity of reality. So if everything is ephemeral, if everything, if nothing has meaning, like intrinsic meaning, if nothing has meaning just by itself, then you have to give it meaning. Everything that you do, you have to give it meaning. He's neither pleased nor displeased by this. So perhaps his viewpoint just alters or informs the way that he designs things. If things don't intrinsically have meaning, you have to give them meaning. And so maybe these strange decisions he's making with his design are because he needs to inject meaning into everything that he does. And then we have these next section. These are all axes. They're sliding spectrums between virtues and vices. So any virtue in excess or in deficit becomes a vice. So if you have too much of a good thing or not enough of a good thing. So your virtues are that nice little area in the middle where you have just the right amount of a thing. So his virtues are: he's honest, he's humble, he is tempered, and he is tolerant. So he's accepting of different views or behaviors. Even if he doesn't implement them, he can accept and understand them. So these are his vices, and they're sorted nicely into deficiencies and excesses. And each one of these axes that rolls as a vice actually tells you what the virtue is that they're associated with. So he has a deficiency of assertiveness, so that makes him complacent. So even though he is currently benefiting from or being allowed to design things that are maybe not completely legal, he is beholden to the fact that the lawmakers or the rule enforcers are allowing him to do that. But if they were really grilling him on that as someone who's complacent, he would maybe change. He wouldn't do that anymore. Or maybe that would convince him to get up and move. So that tells us a little bit, that can give us a hook as a storyteller to maybe something in the government changes. Maybe the rules and regs change. Maybe there's a change of administration. Maybe they start enforcing these rules now, and now all of his stuff that he's building or has already built now has to comply with the new regulations. And he has to go and, retrofit everything that he's built. That's a compelling story. So he also has a deficiency of courageousness. He's fearful. So, if the law really does show up and start cracking down on his stuff, he's going to comply, and he's going to, do it out of fear that he's going to lose that fame, that wealth, or that privilege that he's accumulated over his long career. He has a deficiency of curiosity, so he's a little aloof. He's not super interested in going and exploring new things. Maybe he's seen the world already, and that's why he prefers to stay here. And so he's not really interested in looking for new things or new ideas. He's like, I know my style now. He's old. He's kind of set in his ways. He's like, I don't need to learn anything new. He has a deficiency of independence, so he's subordinate. He is a little bondless. He is miserly, so he likes to hoard his money and spend as little as possible. So that can tie back into his motivation where he wants to accumulate wealth. Maybe he's earning money as a renowned architect, but he's really reluctant to spend any of it. Okay, and then we have excesses. So he has an excess of ambitiousness. So he's a perfectionist. That makes sense for an architect who's really working at the cutting edge. He is too determined, and that makes him a little zealous. That tracks with the story we've been building so far. He has an excess of discretion. So he's a bit ambiguous. He'll say something without masking any of it. So we have those virtues and vices section. And we have a driving motivation down here. So he is protecting some kind of secret. So maybe if we're including that superpower we talked about, and he does have the ability to time travel, that's a big deal. If he's one of the only people or the only person he knows of that has the ability to time travel, and he's using it for this kind of frivolous, like learning architecture and applying architecture, protecting that secret is going to be a big, big deal for him. He has to not get the attention of lawmakers. He has to not get the attention of competitors while still trying to build that fame and that wealth that he's, trying to move towards. So that's a compelling conflict that shows up. So rooting interest, this is not for anyone in the character or anyone in the story, but external people, whether it's readers, players, or you as the DM. Why do other people care about this character? Why do we want to root for them? What is our rooting interest? So for this character, we rolled resilience. So the character endures hardship without giving up. So apparently he's an old man. His climb to fame and wealth as an architect has been long in coming. Maybe, in his early to midlife, he was not famous and wealthy, and he wasn't really moving in that direction. He was kind of wandering, meandering. Maybe he only got this time travel power recently. And now he's having to, as an old person, he's having to, deal with the secret keeping and the, paradox issues that comes with time traveling and extracting information or materials from other places in time. And he's having to do that as his body ages and he gets more frail. But we're watching him endure all of this. He's resilient. He's able to buck up and go through it, even though it's really hard for him. And that can give us buy-in as external viewers. Okay. Then we have a concept, again, that I took from storytelling, from book writing. This is called a character arc. So this is a 5-step paradigm where you start at one end and over the course of the story, you wind up on the other end. So there's 5 pieces to this. The first one is the ghost, which is a formative event in your character's backstory. It does not need to be negative. It just needs to be impactful. Something that mattered to them that is now going to color their perception and their view of the world and their actions going forward. So apparently our architect was raised under a strict doctrine or ideology. I like this because maybe he was raised or maybe he apprenticed under an architect who was very much rules driven, by the book, thou shalt not color outside the lines. And now that he is no longer apprenticing under that person, now that he has a little more freedom, now he's really wanting to shift and try and push the boundaries and the limits and see what he is allowed to do. So the second part of your character arc is this lie. So there's a misconception that the character has formed about themselves or about the world. And so we rolled, I cannot change who I am. So he is convinced of this falsehood that he now, since he was raised or apprenticed under this strictly by the book style of architecture, now he has to be a contrarian. He has to do things in a weird, unique, or off the wall way to get people's attention, whether it's for money, fame, whatever. He just feels like this is who he is now. So then you have the want. So this is the thing the character believes that they want or that will make them happy. This is misguided, incorrect assumption based on their lie and pursuing what strengthens their lie. Pursuing their want strengthens their lie. So there's 3 aspects to this, and you can readjust these. Again, this is a text file. If I wanted to push this up here, I can literally just go in and edit this text file. I can go in here and move this stuff around, or I can, change this. It's that easy. It's a text file. You can change it with anything. So let's see what we rolled. So justice towards an ability or power. So maybe his time travel power, again, if we're including that in this setting, maybe his limited ability to time travel is illegal, and that's why he's having to keep it a secret. So maybe he wants to have some justification for using this. Maybe once he becomes famous and wealthy, then he can go to the mayor or to the law enforcement people or the standards making people who set the rules and say, okay, well, look, I didn't come up with all these great ideas on my own. I managed to learn this stuff from the past or from the future, and I brought it back here because I understood what it would do culturally to help strengthen our people, etc. And maybe he wants to have that secret out. He wants that justice for that ability or power that he has. Recognition towards a belief or an ideology, that also makes sense. We can tie that in. He has this ideology that he wants to be a contrarian. He wants to push the boundaries. He wants to change, what exists, and he wants recognition for that. And then his other subplot is knowledge towards a thing. So maybe he wants to understand how the time travel mechanic works. Maybe he's limited in when and how often he can use it, and he doesn't understand the item or the place that allows him to go back or forward in time, or by how much, and he's trying to learn how to adjust those dials or those settings or that magic to make it work to send him to when he wants to go. And all of these things should strengthen his lie that he must be a contrarian. And all of that makes sense because it ties into the stuff that we've said already. So then you have the need, and this is what the character actually requires to be complete. It provides a personalized anecdote to their lie, usually a key realization. Comes later in the story after they pursue their want, achieve it, and realize that they still feel empty. So this challenges the status quo of the world. So his need, what will make him feel better as a wanting, driving character, is to see others as equals. So maybe he has accumulated this fame and this wealth over the course of his life, and he has built up this career and this name for himself, this reputation. He's pursued and understood this time-traveling power, and now he's actually brought it forward and educated other people about it and got it approved, and now things are legal, but he still doesn't feel good. He still doesn't feel complete. He still feels like something is missing. This is the need. And so he wants to see others as equals, because maybe up till this point he thought he was better than everybody else. Whether or not he's had good justification for that belief or not, this is supposed to be an anecdote to their lie. So if his personal lie is that he has to be a contrarian, he still has the skills and the ability to be a good architect, a good designer, even if he's, playing within the rules. He's drawing coloring within the lines. Now he can still be creative within those constraints, and he doesn't have to be better than everyone else. So then the last part of your character arc is this thing called the truth, and this is the antidote to their lie. So his truth is that there's strength in community. So maybe he's been isolated. Maybe he's just been doing his own thing. There's other architects who work in the city or in neighboring cities or nearby areas that have wanted to work with him because he's wealthy and famous, or just because he's interesting, or he's kind of aloof. And everybody's like, we have the yearly meeting of all the architects from the surrounding kingdom, and this guy never comes. We always invite him. He never shows up. We keep sending him letters. He never turns out. And maybe he gets those letters. He's like, bah, I don't need to go indulge these people. And so he will grow as a character when he accepts the fact that there is strength in his community. And then this last section was added very recently. This came from the Mystic Arts on YouTube. Dottie is a dungeon master. He pulled the idea from a Reddit post, which is linked on that video when you find it. It's called Knife Theory. And this was mainly meant for tabletop role-playing games when you're making a backstory for your character, which the concept is make vulnerabilities for your character. Give your DM knives to stab you with. And that sounds a bit morbid, but what that means is you give the game master things that can be leveraged against your character to create tension or conflict. And that tension and conflict creates buy-in. It gives us immersion. It pulls us into the story. If your backstory for your character is completely resolved, he had a great childhood, nothing went wrong, he worked at a job before, but he left and everybody was Gucci. Like, that's not it's a fine backstory, but it's not interesting. Like, you and your DM can't do anything with that. If everyone and everything in their backstory is completely resolved, and they have no personal connections and nothing that can be used against them in their current state of being, then, like, there's nothing the DM can really do other than just make up something and hope that it makes sense, hope that it sticks, to kind of draw your character into the main campaign arc, the main thread, or the conflict that comes up in the game. So the idea of the knife theory post was to give your DM knives for which to stab you with, because that makes it interesting. On the grounds that you are okay being stabbed, and you as a DM are okay stabbing your players, because this is a thing that we agree to. This is fiction. This is fun. So I relabeled that as vulnerabilities, because that's basically what they are. And the generator, by default, just gives you 5. You don't have to use all of them. You can make more. There can be duplicates in here. So each one of these are a choose a or a create a thing. If you roll the same thing more than once, then you'll have to make more or do more than one thing. Like if you got choose a person to which you owe a debt and you rolled that twice, maybe your character owes a debt to 2 different people or 2 different organizations. So duplicates are allowed in this section. So let's look at the ones that we rolled for our architect friend here. So create a rumor or reputation about them that is false. Okay. Well, as someone who's trying to make fame and wealth, there's a litany of things we could put in that slot. Okay. Choose an unexplained or unstable ability. Again, if we're going to add that time travel power in, there should probably be some restrictions on when or how often he can use it, how accurate it is. You know, maybe it's like the teleport spell where sometimes you just wind up not where you wanted to go. Choose a knowledge others would kill to obtain. All of the architectural knowledge he has from past and future. Sounds perfect. Choose a specific crime to be falsely accused of. Okay. So as we're defining, loosely those rules and regulations for architecture that he's butting up against all the time, or that he's blatantly stepping across the line for, we need to pick a specific one of those lines that he's been accused of crossing, maybe by a competitor or maybe by the other architects for the guild who just don't understand the building method, and they assume that he's broken some rule. This tower shouldn't support itself with the materials you made it out of, and yet it's freestanding, so you must have done something with magic or with this or that or the other to allow it to be freestanding on its own. And they accuse him of that. Choose a place they're forbidden from or unwise to return to. So it says he likes his state, but we never said that state, the current place that he's living, is the place he was born. So maybe the place that he was born and raised and apprenticed under, when he started working on his own, he made a bad name for himself. He rubbed a lot of people the wrong way as he was finding his own footing, as he was, young and still didn't have the fame and wealth that he wanted, but he had all this want, he had all this desire. He was like, I want to do everything, and I want to do it all, and I want to do it well. And everybody who gets in my way, I'll trample over them, do whatever I have to do to get them out of the way. So maybe he's not forbidden from returning to that town or that city, but maybe it's just not a good idea for him to go back. Okay, so we have painted a very deep and complex view of this character. And recall, we made this character in under 2 seconds from this generator. We ran it, we pushed yes, and we got a character. And look, we have another one right here. I'm not going to go through this whole thing. But that's how fast you can make a character with that level of emotional and situational depth from the generator. And there's hundreds. I don't want to do the math for how many options are in here, but if you look, each one of these CSV files for each one of those sections has dozens of options in it. And you can add more, you can remove ones, like I showed you before. It's very easy to modify this. Now, that's all well and good, but you say, I don't want to play a Hobgoblin Architect, or I don't want a Hobgoblin Architect in, my book or my movie or my play, whatever I'm writing, or my D&D campaign, if you're running it as a D, whatever. I don't want a random character. I have either a rough idea for a character or I have a relatively strong concept for a character, but I just need some more info about that character to sort of help me out, to finish fleshing it out. So instead of picking yes here at the very beginning, we're going to pick no. We are not going to do a quick character. So here, we're going to step through, the generator is going to step us through each one of those sections one at a time. It's going to roll something randomly, show it to us, and then it's going to tell us, do you want to keep this or do you want to re-roll it? And we get to do that for each one of those sections. So most of these I'm just going to pass through for the sake of brevity. Let's say the first part of our character's name is Or. Sure. Orlady? That's maybe a bit hard to pronounce. Why don't we try a different last name? Ormond? Let's go with Ormond. Okay, Ormond, press enter to accept. Sounds good. Or we can type a custom name there. If you don't like using a name generator, you can literally just type whatever you want right there. As long as you don't type just the letter R, because that'll re-roll it. Whatever you want to type there, that'll be your character's name. And again, this makes a text file when you're done. You can edit it with anything. You can go in, change the file name, change your character name. It's very easy to edit after the fact. So if the generator gives you something you don't like, or you accidentally accept something, or it just doesn't have an option that you want, or you don't want to roll for it because you know exactly what it is, go in and change it. It's very easy. So Ormond is a half-elf. Enter to accept, type anything to re-roll. Why don't we just re-roll? A drow? Maybe a gnome. Ormond is a gnome. A female adult gnome. Maybe a male child gnome. Sure. Are they bald? A bald child. Wouldn't that be funny? Sure. Maybe they worship. They've worshipped before, but they don't worship regularly. Sure. A smooth-talking charmer. Maybe not. A polite, well-mannered individual. Sure. Here's our personal self. They're deeply insecure about those they care about. Maybe they struggle to trust those closest to them. Surprisingly gentle with their inner circle. Overprotective of their family. Sure. They feel trapped by expectations. Sure. Whoops, I hit reroll. Deep down, they feel weary from all that they've been through. Sure. Maybe let's start to put some ideas together. So this little bald gnome child is very protective of their family. Maybe he's a street urchin. Maybe his family's very poor. They live in the slums. But he's a pickpocket. He's a little backstabber. But he's got a good heart. He gets the job done. That's the picture I'm starting to put together. Let's see if we can steer the generator towards that. Hide a personal weakness so they could change how others see them. Sure, we can find a weakness. Got lots of siblings. That makes sense for a poor family. He's a bookbinder. Doesn't track. A brewer, a watchman, a smuggler. I could see the little bald kid being a smuggler for sure. Great with athletics. That sounds right. Laughs at inappropriate moments. Maybe not. Can hide their emotions. That seems like a good flaw for a kid to have. Dances or sings often. Speaks slowly. Repeats others' words. Forgets names. A smuggler who forgets people's names. That'd be funny. Who you're supposed to be smuggling this stuff to? Remember. I like that. It's responsible for a past disaster. That's maybe a bit much for our little kid. Has a pet that no one knows about. As a poor kid who's trying to make ends meet, if you have a pet, that's like, what do you mean you're feeding and taking care of an animal? I like that. That's good conflict. Let's just skip the superpower. Let's just accept anything and we'll cut it later. Because it's a text file. We can just go in and delete it. Playful attitude. Competitive. Distracted. Authoritative. Observant. Yeah, maybe he's a rude little bald kid. That checks out. Some of these we're just going to skip over. I'm just going to accept anything. Let's see. Suggests a lack of a definite aim. Probably. Tends to consider groups more important than individuals. Generally displeased. Neutral. Sure. Why not? Let's just click through some of these. An excess of courageous. He's reckless. That makes sense. Is he too assertive? He's combative. Sure. Too empathetic. So he's anxious. Let's see what the deficiency of this trait is. Callous. I can see the little bald kid who's struggling to make ends meet not being very empathetic. That checks out. Excess of trusting. He's gullible. A gullible smuggler. Because he's a kid. I like that. He's loyal. Faithful to commitments or obligations. Even if he's not a good smuggler, he tries to be. He's impulsive. Too determined, so he's zealous. Apathetic? I don't think apathetic's good. Let's pick the virtue for this one. He's determined. Excessive honest. He's surly. An overly honest smuggler. Let's not pick everything that's contrary. Honest? Maybe he's a little coddling. He withholds informations that would or actions that cause others pain. Okay. Maybe he's not willing to tell the people he's smuggling for, this is probably what's ruining your life. Yeah, maybe he wouldn't. He's ambitious? Maybe not. He's a kid. He's a little aimless. Sure. He's a little cynical? Probably not. Open-minded? Probably not. So traditionalist is our remaining option. And again, if you roll through all the options here and you re-roll again, it will reset the pool and start over. So let's just go with traditionalist. He's not humble enough, so he's a bit prideful. Maybe. Maybe he's self-deprecating. Yeah, maybe he's really hard on himself. I think he's too curious, so he's intrusive. That sounds like the right word. Independent, self-reliant, capable of acting without support. Maybe he's too independent. That's a deficiency. He's subordinate. No, maybe he's too independent. He's isolated. Yeah, even though he's got all those brothers and sisters, maybe he's the only one out on the streets really making money and really trying to affect the family situation, with active measures rather than just he's working whatever factory or coal job that they'll give to the kids, to his other siblings. Maybe he's the only one out on the street really trying to make coin the hard way. Let's see. Self-valuing. That doesn't deserve what you've earned because others haven't earned them. I think that would put him at odds with his siblings, which could be interesting from storytelling perspective. Maybe he feels more entitled. Yeah, he's too self-valuing. He thinks he deserves more than other people. And so his status as like a street urchin, as like a poor kid, is like really, really grating on him. That sounds good. He's tolerant? Probably not. He's a kid. He's probably a little prejudiced. As a bald kid? For sure. He gets picked on. He picks on other people. He throws he can take it and he throws it back. Discreet? Doesn't track. Ambiguous? Probably offensive. That sounds like the most accurate of those three options. Each one of these virtues and vices, there's three options. There's the deficiency, there's the virtue, and there's the excess. So if you don't like one, just look at the other two, and you can always just re-roll them later. Let's skip through the rest of these. Let's see what's the next step. Okay, so we've got motivation, seeking redemption or validation. Validation seems like something a little bald kid smuggler would be trying to go for. That checks out. So why do we, as the reader or the other players at the table, why do we care about this little bald kid? Show how the character's been unjustly punished by the world. That fits. Inherited a burden or responsibility. That sounds perfectly in line with the character we're building right now. Happiness is unattainable. For a kid, that may be a little too dark, a little too deep. Peace means complacency. Maybe life is a trap. Must go it alone. That sounds like our little one-off street urchin smuggler for sure. Revenge towards a legacy. Maybe his family wasn't always poor. Maybe they fell on hard times. Maybe the place his parents worked went under, or they were disowned or exiled or something, and now they're poor. Now they live in squalor. That could give our little kid a real big chip on his shoulder. If he remembers when, he lived in a nice house and his parents had money and everything was calm and structured and organized and stable, that tracks. That would also explain why he feels entitled, Sure, let's go with that. We can justify the subplots later. Needs to see others as equals. If he's entitled, that would make sense. Let's see what else there is. It's not really speaking to me. Seeing value beyond achievement. maybe beyond money. A challenge, tradition, personal happiness, taking responsibility. You know, I feel like he's already doing that. Probably too much. Setting boundaries, maybe. Accepting help from others definitely seems like something. Because we said he was too independent, right? He was isolated. So accepting help from others is probably the thing that he needs to learn how to do. Whether it's charity, handouts, or just allowing people to find a nice job for him or whatever it is, you know. To allow them to cook for him, give him food, give him a home. Value is not tied to achievement. That would fit. I don't like it. Power does not guarantee safety. That sounds like a hard lesson for a kid to learn who's out on the streets, for sure. All right, vulnerabilities. And those will just pick and choose when we're done. Okay, so when it's done, here we go. Here's our little text file right here. Ormond, and here he is, our male child gnome, who's bald. And here is all the decisions we made as we stepped through that character generator. So we went into this, we had no clue who or what we were going to make. You know, we rolled a few things and we're like, man, I don't like that. And then as we stepped through the generator, the story, the concept of the character came together. And then we made sure that the rest of the stuff as we were stepping through the generator fit that concept that we were going for. And everything helps to layer and deepen that really rudimentary, basic idea we had for Ormond, that character that we were building. But then I can go in, you know, maybe he doesn't have 3 brothers and 1 sister. Maybe he has 1 brother, you know, and maybe he's got 7 sisters, you know. This is a text file. This is so easy to just come in and change and just save it. And then you have it, right? All this stuff is text. It's plain text. It's super easy. You can edit it in anything. Notepad is what I'm using right now. It's Notepad. All of this stuff, super easy. Now, in the same way, when we got partway through this generator and we started to form a picture of this character in our mind, you know, he's a bald street urchin, smuggler kid who has a chip on his shoulders trying to make a name for himself. And then the rest of the generator, we tried to steer in that direction and lock in things that made sense with that character. And we re-rolled the stuff that didn't. You can go into this, you can make a completely random character with this, like we did first with our architect hobgoblin friend. We can go in with no idea of what we want to make, and then as we roll a few options, you know, we just kind of pick what we like, we roll past what we don't, and then once we start to get a picture, we lock the rest in to focus on that. You can do the exact same thing. If you have a very strong idea of who your character is, you can still run through this generator and make it work. So why don't we build a character that most of us are familiar? Let's build Darth Vader and let's see what the generator writes, you know, what we can make fit for this concept of Darth Vader we have in our head. So let's say we're not going to do a quick character. I'm just going to accept the 2 names, and then I'm going to type a custom name. Here's Darth Vader, right? He's a satyr. You know what? Let's just re-roll that. Re-roll. Do we get human? Okay, there's human. We could always go in and change the text file later, right? He's a male teenager. He might be a little older than that, but maybe a male adult. Middle-aged man? Sure. Has a noticeable voice. You know, he sure does. He has worshipped before. You know, that makes sense for an ex-light side of the Force religious kind of person. Sure, let's lock that in. He's a polite, well-mannered individual who follows proper social rules. I wouldn't call a tyrant who chokes people in their command polite. Let's see what else we've got. Battle-scarred warrior with a fearsome reputation. That sounds like Darth Vader. Let's lock that in. They can be jealous and possessive in close relationships. Ooh, that sounds right. They believe, all the Star Wars fans in the comment section are just going to correct the hell out of me. But look, this is like, we have an idea for who this character is, and we're trying to make the generator, like, give us more articulate, refined versions of this strong concept we have in our head. They believe they must always be in control to be safe. That sounds like, yeah. At least my concept of Vader. Yours may be different. They secretly compare themselves to others. You know, they do. Anakin does spend a lot of his time, maybe not after he becomes Vader, but while he is, you know, angsty teen Anakin, you know, he is very much like comparing himself to the other Jedi on the council and his master. And yeah, I don't think he has any siblings. I think he's an only child. Okay, he's a navigator. That's close. We can change it to pilot when we get into the text document. He can remain perfectly still for long periods. Maybe. Quick learner. Great with riddles and puzzles. Great at throwing stuff with precision. He can yeet you right out the airlock. An expert non-magical healer. Good sense of direction. Distractions. Great at hiding his emotions. He was kind of the opposite of that. Can hide in plain sight. Great at predictions. Can endure extreme conditions. I would call surviving being lit on fire in a pit of lava to be an extreme condition. It gets defensive. Can't hide their emotions. That sounds right. Echoes or repeats others' words. Coughs. Complex vocabulary. Fidgets. Speaks fast. Gets distracted. Walks fast. Mumbles. Yeah, maybe he's constantly adjusting that cloak or that helmet or his gloves or something. Sure. Has a forbidden relationship. Well, that sounds right. He can predict the future. You know what? I think he's got a good inkling, but let's see what else there is. Can shapeshift, superhuman strength, travel in time, can't be harmed by normal weapons, immunity to an element, becomes more powerful when drunk, can stop time, control the weather, can speak with gods, regenerative powers, unbelievable luck, you know? He did have a lot of bad stuff happen to him, but pass through walls. Let's just go with superhuman strength, you know? You can't normally lift somebody up by the neck with one hand unless you're pretty strong. And if he can do that with the force, let's call that superhuman strength. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's a text file. We can go edit it later. Yeah, he's pretty serious. Creative and colorful. Easily inspires others. Cheerful. You know, that doesn't sound like Vader. Let's see what else we got. Conscious of details. Prone to genius. Artistic, musical, philosophical. Conscious of details. Orderly and organized. Prone to genius. Talented, creative. Appealing personality. Apologizes quickly. That doesn't sound right. Turns disaster into humor. Good sense of humor. Creative and colorful. Sincere. Doesn't sound right. Finds the easy way. Has many friends. Patient and relaxed. That doesn't sound right. Cool, calm, collected, relaxed. Doesn't get upset. Dry sense of humor. That doesn't sound right. Envied by others. Talkative, spontaneous. And, you know, maybe it's hard to find strengths for a character that's like really, really, you know, mustache twirlingly evil or, you know, or villainous. But, you know, envied by others, talkative, spontaneous, thrives on compliments, creative. You know, envied by others and thrives on compliments and spontaneous definitely rings more to Anakin and Vader. Needs center stage, wants to be popular, easily distracted. That sounds right. Faithful, devoted, persistent, and a deep need for approval. That sounds right. Suggest a lack of a definite aim. I mean, he kind of knows what he wants. He's just not got a good way to go get it, you know? Tends to consider groups more important than individuals. No, he's very individualistic. Prefers to seek patterns in things as a means to understanding. Carefully weigh decisions instead of utilizing randomness. He doesn't really carefully weigh his decisions now, does he? He's kind of reckless. Values individuals over groups. It says he's aligned here. We can change that to misaligned in the text file when we get there, instead of just keep rolling for it. Likely to cheat on their spouse and badmouth their family when not in their presence. Not really. I need to put some spaces in here. This block of text is kind of hard to read. Let's see. Neutral stance towards family. Nah, he's got a pretty strong feeling on family. Unaware of family and to draw no distinctions. Familial ambiguity and uncertainty will minimize bias. I don't think so. I'd say he's devoted to his family. And he's... we would again change his morality here from neutral to misaligned. You know, his strong devotion to his to Padme is what part of what his downfall came to. So let's prefers to avoid the community. He doesn't avoid them. Mutual dependence between themselves. He does not enjoy that. Prefers to avoid. I guess he prefers to avoid the community then, if those are our options. And he should be misaligned with that. First to avoid the community, and we can change it to misaligned when we get into the text document. Governed by a state of abundance. The Empire does sound like a state of abundance. And he's misaligned. He suffers from wanting to be governed by the Empire. I would say that tracks. Results from the perceived subjectivity of reality. I think he's very more a causative person, right? Events are not merely the result of causal chains, but that's chance. I don't think he's very chance-minded. Meaningfulness. There is an objective reality, resultant from this objective reality. Yeah. And misaligned. Yes. Fearful, combative, maybe a little callous. He has trouble seeing it from other people's point of view. He's a bit gullible. He's led on by Darth Sidious and other people. He's definitely a little fanatical. Definitely more impulsive. Is he apathetic? Is he undetermined? No, I think he's too determined. Zealous. That's a good word. Is he too honest? I don't think coddling is right either. Honest may be the right call there. Definitely ambitious. Is he too ambitious? That would be perfectionist. I don't think he's a perfectionist, but he's not aimless. Let's switch it back to ambitious. That seems good. He's a little cynical. That sounds right. He's trouble being open-minded. Very prideful. Not curious enough. Maybe a little aloof. Yeah, he doesn't seem to ask or to probe a lot other people's point of view in their mind. He's a little aloof. Independent, self-reliant, capable of acting without support. Maybe he's a little too independent. What's the excess there? Isolated. That sounds like the right word. Excess of self-valuing. Entitled. That sounds right. Pandering. He's too tolerant. He's probably not tolerant enough. Probably a little prejudice. Yeah. Too discreet. He's probably not discreet enough. A little offensive. Too modest? No. Probably not modest enough. Shameless. Not temperate enough. He is not ascetic. Hedonistic is probably closer to the truth. I don't know how much he spends. Let's just put him on the virtue there. Spends within his means. Irascible. Unable to be angered. No, he's probably too tempered. Irascible. Easily angered. Hot-headed. That sounds right. Seeking recognition or validation. Yeah. Endures hardship without giving up. No, he kind of tends to buckle. Unpredictable. You never know what they're going to do next. That sounds about right. Grew up in privilege? Nope. Failed to save someone. Was chosen for something important. That sounds like Anakin. Control is the only way to stay safe. The world is fundamentally unjust. You know, he may have come to that conclusion. Respect towards an ability or power. You underestimate my power. You know what? We're just going to lock that in. We can adjust the rest later. That sounds good. He needs to let go of the past. Yeah. Vader does have an issue with a lot of that stuff. You're not defined by your past. I mean, that tracks. You owe a great debt, a patron with demands, specific wrongdoing to seek redemption, promise or oath that cannot be easily broken. Let's see what else we got. Oh, God. Yeah, I need to put some faces in this. Specific person to rely on for emotional or practical support. Premise made a specific unsavory person or organization. You know what? That sounds right. Prized heirloom that can be stolen or destroyed. Yeah. Forbidden or unwise to return to? Yeah, sure. And look, here we go. We have Darth Vader.txt, and then there's all our stuff. So that's it. That's the generator. That's how it works. Again, you can always go into these CSV files and add or remove options. Just make sure you put a comma and then a number for the weight of how much you want. You see most of these are all weighted equally, so they're all equally likely to get the outcome. I think the main one that has weights in here is the race here. So you can just go in and make changes that easy. Go in, open the text file, make a change, add something, delete something, save it, and then run the generator again. This code and all these files are up on my GitHub. So you can download them for free. You can use the generator yourself. If you don't trust the exe, the Python code that I used to compile it is right here. So you can open this, and this is literally everything that this code does. You can either run this Python code if you want to install Python and you know how to run a Python file, or you can compile this Python out to an exe yourself and run that. But this is the generator. This is how it works. I figured I'd share this. I really like this because I can make a character in anywhere from, as you saw, 2 seconds to 20 minutes, depending on what level of control and granularity I want to have over the process, how much I want to steer the generator, and how much I care about what comes out the other end. But either way, we get a vision, we get a view of a character, we get a synopsis, we get this rap sheet of so much about them, their past, their desires, their wants, their needs, their future, their temperament, their disposition. We get all this stuff that I pulled from all these different systems, and I think it really helps give us a clear picture of the character so that it's easy to write, and it's easy to role play, and it's easier to manage if you're a DM. So if you end up using it, if you like it, let me know. It's out there for anyone who wants to use it. Enjoy.